The Biden administration using climate change as an excuse to levy a slew of new proposed regulations that will have a profound impact not on the climate necessarily, but on the economy and how every American lives and works. As of August 1st, incandescent light bulbs and halogen bulbs will be banned in the United States. Democrats are advancing legislation at a state level to ban gas stoves, and now the White House releasing a new proposal that would require at least 54% of new vehicles sold in the U.S. to be electric by 2030, and just over 2 years later in 2032, two-thirds of all vehicles sold would need to be electric. The average price for an electric vehicle right now is about $65,000. It's more than 2.5 times that of a gas-powered car. According to a new AP NORC poll, only 19% of Americans say their next car will be electric, and the reasons most gave for not wanting one: the cost is too high, not enough charging stations, and it takes too long to charge, and they just simply prefer gas engines. The American auto and energy industries are under attack by Washington, and here to break it all down, the costs and the dangers, Mandy Gunasekara. She's the former chief of staff of the Environmental Protection Agency. She's a senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum and a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And Lauren Fix. She is editor-in-chief of Car Coach Reports and a NewsMax contributor. Both of you, welcome. Thank you so much. Mandy, before we get to kind of the impacts, we know that this White House is not going to try to go through Congress to do this. You've been in the regulatory environment. How will they try to impact these huge segments of the economy by fiat?
Well, they know that by the time they get the regulations final, the car companies are already going to be designing their future cars for model year 2032, which is when over two-thirds of cars sold are supposed to be fully electric. They're going to start that design process in 5 years. So the regulatory approach in the Biden administration will be to quickly finalize these rules, send that signal, and then hope that it takes a long time for the Supreme Court to actually catch up. Because at the heart of this is a major legal problem that the Biden administration will continue to ignore, but it's a reinstitution of the major questions doctrine, which basically means that the agency must point to clear congressional authority if they're going to try to do something like redesign the entirety of the transportation sector, and they do not have that authority. So they're in an uphill battle when it comes to the legal aspect.
And the Biden administration has lost on that major questions doctrine a couple of times already. Lauren, over to you. People don't want to be pushed into this. They're not necessarily so reflexively opposed to it, but these cars are more expensive to make. They require raw materials from China and elsewhere. Right. It is a massive gamble for the industry. Is this realistic, and could ultimately it damage the automakers who employ tens of thousands of people in this country?
Absolutely. You're going to see a lot of damage. You have to look at what's going on right now. No automaker is making money on electric vehicles. Tesla makes very little bit of money because of scale, but he's already reduced the price of his vehicle for the third time this year. And when you think about that, if the companies aren't making money, what's going to happen? They're going to let people go. And while the UAW was all gung-ho on battery vehicles, if they start losing their employees, their union members, that's where there's going to be a problem. And you're already seeing manufacturers like General Motors and Ford asking people to take early retirement. You don't get that very often in the auto industry. The problem is the cost of these materials is dramatically more. The cost to consumers is dramatically more, not just for the vehicle, but also the insurance costs, there's charging, the infrastructure's not there. And just to give you an idea, across the United States, there's only 130,000 charging stations. That means one charging station for 10,000 cars. That doesn't make sense. That's where we are today. What's it going to be if we go to 67%? It's just not possible.
Yeah, Lauren, quick follow-up to you. Is this kind of a backdoor way for the government to basically take over the auto industry? Because you're going to have to provide them with major taxpayer-funded subsidies. There's going to have to be taxpayers are going to have to pay for these charging stations and to bring the infrastructure up to speed. Is it kind of a backdoor way to kind of nationalize one of our biggest industries?
Well, actually, we're giving in to China because China owns 80% of the mines. That's the biggest thing. And, China's going to squeeze us on that. That's the number one thing. Yes, they are mandating this 67%. And like Mandy said, it's not going to make it when it goes to the Supreme Court. You can't mandate what people purchase. And what's also interesting about all of this, Besides the fact that consumers don't want this, the infrastructure is not there. Just overall, this doesn't make sense. And when they built cell towers, Verizon put in money, AT&T put in money. Why are we as taxpayers paying for this infrastructure when the grid can't support it? And wind and solar can only support 18%, which is not even close.
Mandy, to Lauren's point, there are legal issues here. People don't want it. The president knows that the electrical capacity cannot sustain tens of millions of cars being charged every night. They know, as Lauren just said, China controls 85% of the lithium for the batteries. Why, why would this administration have this myopic obsession about doing this?
Well, they keep prioritizing the wants of political activists that are close to them over addressing the needs of the American people. And you've seen that time and time again. And this is just the latest example. What the Chinese have done, too, is they've realized that this administration, like the Obama administration, has a blind zealotry to the climate agenda. And so, as Lauren rightfully points out, they've gone out there and taken control of the majority of the critical minerals that go into this. So none of this benefits the American family or the American individual, but it does benefit the Chinese Communist Party. And at the end of the day, the Biden administration, they're going to give themselves a pat on the back because they feel morally superior because they can check the box on their climate agenda, but it's an absolute disaster with serious consequences.
Yeah, I worked at the EPA during the Bush administration. You were there. Did you ever see any science that suggested replacing cars would have any measurable impact on global emissions, especially when you need to generate more power and more emissions to build them and power them? Mandy, quick word to you, and then Lauren, quick follow-up.
Yeah, none of this is about emissions. It's all about landing control of individuals over to the federal government. And also it has a back end effect of minimizing potential environmental impacts, because if less people can get in newer cars, that minimizes the reach of new technologies, pollution control, but also safety, which is one of the big things that we went in and tried to prioritize in the Trump administration.
Lauren, real quick, 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, Mandy's correct. One of the things, who does this hurt the most? Low-income people. They can't afford a new car. They're still driving their 94 Toyota Camry. I mean, seriously, this makes no sense. They don't have charging. They don't have garages. They typically live in some sort of government housing. You're going to mandate these people to buy electric vehicles? Makes no sense.
I just think you got it. It's not following the science. It's following the money. Who's making money off of this? Mandy Gunasekara and Lauren Fix, thank you both very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.